Madam Chair, and I don't know if I've said it yet today, but thank you for doing such an excellent job of keeping everybody on their respective sides without us going into the middle and breaking parliamentary procedures. So thank you so much. And it's been a fascinating day. Certainly we learned a lot about Madame Breyer's long history at her college, university. We learned about ancient Athens. We went through the medieval era. So if you'll indulge me, I'll quote scripture, the book of Luke. You didn't know that I was an altar boy, did you? Well, I was. And in the book of Luke, it says that what is done in the darkness will be shouted from the rooftops, and what is whispered in the back rooms will be shown to all. And I think that this is what happens when we end up with corruption scandals and conflict of interest, is it's embarrassing for the government. I don't go back as far as Athens, but in my time in Parliament, I've seen a lot of the tawdry, slapping, rum bottle politics on the Rideau that we're famous for, all the tawdry deals. I remember I came in just after Jean Chrétien spent a couple $1 billion on golf balls. I remember Brian Mulroney getting money in a brown paper bag and explaining that to Canadians. Bruce Carson, I've seen that one. Mike Duffy, Nigel Wright. And the work of this committee has been sometimes very raucous and very confrontational, but it is this committee that tries to establish some review of the ethical behaviors of parliamentarians. We are not a technical committee. We are a political committee, as my good friend Mr. Scarpelleggia said, and it falls to us to sometimes bring these issues into the public light. And I have been quoted extensively, so I feel I might have a life here beyond my limited career. If other people do quote me in perpetuity, it might speak for how long I've been on this committee. And the issue of the integrity of documents is something I've spoken up before, and I've spoken it up when we've had liberals in power and conservatives in power, and we do need to establish precedents, and I think that's really important. I think what makes this issue difficult is that we had the We Charity state publicly that no money was paid to the Trudeaus, and that was false. So the question of trusting them on this is it raises questions now that have to be answered. What were those financial relations? Because the refusal of the Prime Minister and Mr. Morneau to recuse themselves has raised ethical questions that must be answered. And we have had two other findings of guilt against the Prime Minister where we've tried to have the Ethics Commissioner report to our committee and we've been blocked by the government. So how do we make recommendations about how things should be done if the government refuses to let the Ethics Commissioner speak to our committee so that we can present to Parliament for a report that would suggest changes? And if we had done that on the previous two findings of guilt, Mr. Trudeau may not be in the situation he is now, because maybe there would have been some measures put in place. And Madame Breyer was great about talking about how we have these standards. Well, we have standards, but if those in power refuse to respect them, we have a problem. And this is why the Prime Minister is under his third investigation. So we could talk all night. I've been in many long filibusters, but I am just a conflict of interest. My own family members, I should put it out in case someone finds out, I am actually trying to move one of my daughters this weekend, and that's a conflict of interest for me because I'm a lot more afraid of my wife than I am of the conflict of interest commissioner, and I have to help move my daughter. So I'm trying to bring us together. So I've heard the Liberals say again and again and again that they think it's inappropriate that the financial records of the Trudeau family be brought before our committee, and they keep mentioning the Ethics Commissioner. And I certainly heard my Conservative colleagues suggest that we want to hear Justin Trudeau speak, because it's Justin Trudeau who put his family in this situation. It was his choice. And it was we's choice to start paying the Trudeau family after he became Prime Minister that put them within a very fair discussion about political influence. So I would offer a friendly amendment that we would, as in the New Democrats, support this committee calling for the records, the financial records, to be obtained from we and transferred to the Ethics Commissioner, so that, again, we're not turning this into a family circus, But we want those documents turned over. If they were turned over to the Ethics Commissioner, if the Liberals supported that, then that would back up everything they said for the last 3 hours, excluding all the stuff they said about medieval kings and princes and ancient Athens and all the other stuff. But the gist of it was they kept saying, trust the Ethics Commissioner. We would put that forward in a friendly amendment if we could say that we call on Justin Trudeau to explain his role in this and the decisions he made. Because the Liberals have said again and again and again that it's not fair to draw on the family members, it's the office holders. So the public office holder, if Mr. Trudeau agrees to come here, we would agree to transfer the documents, the financial documents of the Trudeau family and the We Corporation to the Ethics Commissioner. So he gets to decide what's going to be released or not released, and we get to hear from the public office holder. So I would make that as a friendly amendment if my colleagues are interested, and then we could vote on this, and then we could go home and I could go move my daughter and not be in serious conflict with my family. But other than that, I'm willing to stay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Angus. I just want to be clear here then. Are you moving an amendment to this motion right now?
Yes, I am.
Then would you please help us understand the wording of your amendment?
That pursuant to Standing Orders 1083H, the committee review the safeguards which are in place to avoid and prevent conflicts of interest in federal government procuring, contracting, grant contribution, and other expenditures, to provide a case study for this review. In order, the committee do issue to the Speaker Spotlight for a copy of all records pertaining to speaking appearances arranged since October 14th, 2008 for Justin Trudeau, Sophie Gregoire Trudeau, Margaret Trudeau, and Alexandre Trudeau, including in respect of each speaking appearance, an indication of the fee provided, any expenses that were reimbursed with the name of the company and the person providing it, and that these records shall be provided to the Ethics Commissioner for his study, and that this committee calls upon Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to appear to give testimony relating to these matters.
So just to be clear, you are asking then that those records be submitted to the Ethics Commissioner and the clerk of this committee?
The Ethics Commissioner.
Okay.
And that the committee calls upon Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to testify regarding these matters to us.
Okay. Just one moment here, Ms. Shanahan. Are you good on that? Are you good on that? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Angus.
Could I call a timeout then? Can I ask for a timeout so that we can digest that?
You're asking me to suspend the meeting?
Yes.
Just give me one moment.
Actually, it might be good for a bathroom break for a few people too. Just saying.
I'll tell you what. Why don't we suspend for 5 minutes? It will allow people to use the restroom should they need to. And it will also allow the analyst and the clerk and I to confer and to just make sure that we have the wording of this amendment correct. All right, I will suspend 5 minutes.